My husband called me out of touch in front of his boss, in a boardroom on the 42nd floor where every decision is worth millions. He had no idea that with a single tap, I could pull up a dashboard showing my app has over 1 million daily active users. He thought he'd buried my silly hobby. Then I got a text from a stranger. Someone from that meeting. I'm looking at your app's numbers. They don't match your husband's story. My name is Evelyn Ashford. I am sitting at the edge of a 30-foot table made of a single slab of polished obsidian, in a boardroom on the 42nd floor of the Helios Capitol Tower in Austin. The air conditioning is refrigerated to the precise point of discomfort, a low, expensive hum designed to keep the men in their $4,000 suits alert. I am the only woman at the table who is not taking notes. I am here as Alfred's wife, a title that, in this room, translates to a high-end, silent accessory. Alfred, my husband, is a vice president. He is currently standing at the head of the room, bathed in the cool light of a projector screen, and he is shining. This is Alfred's arena. He wields the small silver laser pointer like a conductor's baton, his voice a smooth, confident baritone, weaving a narrative of market dominance for the half-dozen partners who watch him with predatory stillness. He had insisted I come. It's good for them to see you, Evie, he'd said this morning, straightening his power blue tie in the hall mirror. They like to know their VPs are stable. It's part of the package. I am part of the package. He clicks the remote. The slide changes. Which brings us, he says, his voice dripping with the intellectual confidence of a man who has never been truly questioned, to the consumer trends in Generation Z. He talks about authenticity, about community-driven narratives, about the failure of legacy systems to adapt. I tune him out slightly, my gaze drifting to the panoramic window. Outside, the Texas sky is a pale, hot blue. Inside, the only light comes from the spreadsheets. Let's look at a case study of a failure to launch, Alfred says. My head snaps back. He's clicked again. On the screen, dominating the room, is a new slide. It shows a graph, a sharp plateau followed by a projected, hypothetical decline. And in the top right corner of that slide is a logo, my logo. It's a simple, elegant nest made of intersecting blue data loops. LoopNest, my app, the one I coded myself, in the hobby room Alfred had built for me. Over 2 years of sleepless nights. My heart stops. Then it starts again. A frantic, sick pounding against my ribs. He is... Here, Alfred says, gesturing to the screen with his baton. We see an application that, while quaint, fundamentally misunderstands its user base. A man at the center of the table, Gareth Hollis, leans forward. Gareth is Alfred's direct boss, a man with thin lips and eyes so pale they look like polished stones. He's the one Alfred wants to impress, the one who signs off on the 7-figure bonuses. LoopNest, Gareth reads, his voice flat. He turns his head, and his cold gaze finds me at the far end of the table, the accessory. That's your project, isn't it? Evelyn, I recall Alfred mentioning his wife had a little app. The room is silent. Every partner, every analyst in the back row, turns to look at me. I am pinned. I can feel the heat rising in my face, a humiliating, betraying blush. I open my mouth. A small, polite, "It is" forming, but Alfred cuts me off with a laugh. It's a big, hearty, magnanimous sound, a sound designed to put everyone at ease, to show he's in on the joke. He steps away from the screen and walks a few paces down the table, putting a hand on the back of my chair, but not quite touching me. She's a genius. This one, he says, smiling at Gareth. The smile doesn't reach his eyes. But she's an artist, not an analyst. The app is very sweet. She's built a lovely little community. He pauses. For effect, he is a performer. But honestly, he continues, his voice dropping into a conspiratorial, man-to-man tone, she's a bit out of touch with the actual youth market. She doesn't grasp the metrics. The app is, at the end of the day, a time-consuming hobby. There are no serious analytics, no scalable data, nothing we could actually, monetize. The table relaxes. A few of the men let out soft, polite chuckles. They look at me, their eyes sliding off. My status confirmed, the sweet, out-of-touch wife, a pretty expensive piece of decor who doesn't understand the real world of numbers. I try to smile. The expression feels brittle, like a mask made of thin ice. My hands are under the table, gripping each other so tightly my knuckles ache. I stare at the carafe of ice water in the center of the table, focusing on the way the light fractures through it. Gareth Hollis, however, just watches me. His face is impassive, but his eyes are sharp. He holds my gaze for 1, 2, 3 seconds. I feel like a specimen under a microscope, my humiliation being catalogued. Then, he nods, a single, sharp dip of his chin, as if Alfred's assessment has been weighed and confirmed. "Right," Gareth says, turning his attention back to Alfred. "So, a failed metric. Move on. Show me the data from the Singapore launch." And just like that, I am dismissed. The conversation moves on to multi-million-dollar trades, to risk diversification. I am invisible again. But now I am a quantified, public failure. The official, board-approved joke that serves as the backdrop to my husband's business acumen. I keep my eyes down, my breathing shallow, fighting the sting behind my eyes. I will not cry. I will not give him that satisfaction. My phone, resting in the pocket of my blazer, vibrates. A single, sharp buzz against my ribs. I ignore it. It's probably a notification from my own server. An alert. It vibrates again. 2 short, sharp buzzes. Insistent. Alfred is deep in a monologue about derivative markets. No one is looking at me. I am the wallpaper. I slide my hand into my pocket, my fingers closing around the cool, familiar glass. I ease it out, keeping it under the table's massive shadow, angling the screen just enough for me to see. It's a text, from a number I don't recognize. The message is 5 words. "I am sitting right across from your husband." My blood runs cold. I slowly lift my eyes, my gaze sweeping the table. The men are all focused on Alfred, but there, next to Gareth, is a woman I hadn't even registered. She has short, severe silver hair, and she's wearing a dark, impeccably tailored suit. She is looking down at her own phone, her face illuminated by its glow. As I watch, my phone vibrates in my hand one more time. I look down. A new message. "My name is Mara Langford. I make the decisions at Heliozen, not Gareth. Meet out in the hall in 2 minutes. And bring your app." Mara Langford. The name hits me like a physical blow. Mara Langford isn't just a partner. She's the founding partner. The capital is Heliozen Capital. She's a legend. A ghost. She's supposed to be in Zurich or Shanghai. Not here. Not in this meeting. And not texting me. A new kind of energy floods my system. Ice cold and sharp. It cuts straight through the shame and the humiliation. 2 minutes. I stand up. The sound of my chair legs sliding back on the stone floor is obscenely loud in the quiet, air-conditioned room. Every single person, including Alfred, stops and stares. Alfred's mouth snaps shut. Mid-word, his face, for a split second, is not charming. It is pure, undiluted fury. "Evelyn," he says, and his voice is low, warning hiss. "What are you doing?" I pick up my water glass and take a slow, deliberate sip. My hand is perfectly steady. I place the glass back on the table, the small click echoing in the silence. I look past Alfred, past Gareth, and I meet the eyes of Mara Langford. She gives me a barely perceptible nod. "I'm so sorry to interrupt," I say, and my voice is clear and cool, not a tremor in it. "Please continue. I just need to step out and take an urgent call." Alfred is staring at me, his jaw tight, his eyes screaming, "You are embarrassing me. You are ruining this." He thinks I am breaking protocol. He thinks I am being the flighty, emotional wife he just described. He has no idea that the woman he just called out of touch is walking out of this room to meet the only person who actually matters. I turn, and I walk toward the massive glass doors. The sound of my heels a sharp, rhythmic tapping on the floor. I don't look back. I know, with absolute certainty, that my silly hobby is about to become his only problem. The heavy glass door swings shut behind me, the sound a dull, expensive thud. The boardroom is silenced, muffled. Out here in the hallway, the only sound is the low, steady rush of conditioned air. The walls are seamless floor-to-ceiling glass, overlooking Austin, and for a second, I feel suspended 42 stories above the ground, the city sprawling below me like a circuit board. She is already there. Mara Langford. She hasn't moved from the spot I saw from inside the room. She stands with her arms crossed, her back to the view, as if the entire city is just a backdrop for her. She is exactly as I glimpsed short, silver hair cut in an angular, severe style. Her suit is charcoal gray. Simple, but the fabric hangs with a weight that speaks of tailoring I cannot even afford to name. She isn't looking at me. She's looking at the elevator bank, as if she was simply waiting for a lift. I walk toward her, my footsteps silent on the plush carpet. I stop a few feet away. "Ms. Langford," I say. My voice sounds too soft in the vast, empty corridor. She turns. Her eyes are the same color as her suit, a dark, flat gray. They assess me, not as a person, but as a set of data points. She is not welcoming. She is not friendly. She is appraising. "Evelyn Ashford," she says. Her voice is a low, gravelly contralto, a voice that has given billion-dollar orders. "You took your 2 minutes. You said it was urgent." "It is," Mara says. She uncrosses her arms but keeps her hands clasped in front of her. "Let's be clear, because we don't have time. I am the managing partner of this firm. The actual one, Gareth," she gestures dismissively toward the boardroom door, "is the face I pay to sit at the head of the table and make the limited partners feel secure. I am the one who makes the decisions." I just nod, my throat tight. "Your husband," she continues, her voice dropping even lower, "has been telling stories, for months, in private partner meetings, in calls with our acquisition targets. Stories about his unique insight into the Generation Z market, stories about a data source he had access to." She takes her phone from her pocket. It's not a standard model. It's a sleek, dark block, probably some encrypted, military-grade device. She taps the screen twice with her thumb and holds it out to me. My eyes drop to the screen. It's not a text. It's a dashboard, a live, web-based dashboard I've never seen before. It's branded with the Heliozen logo at the top. But the data fields, the graphs I know, they're mine. DAU, MIU, retention cohort. Week 1, Week 4. Average revenue per user. It's all here. Pulled directly from my API. The numbers are correct. 1.2 million daily activities, a 30-day retention rate of 62%, an RPU of $4.12. These are not hobby numbers. These are pre-unicorn numbers. "How?" I whisper, my fingers itching to grab the phone. "How do you have this?" "We pull data from everything. Mrs. Ashford, we have an interest in a company that aggregates app analytics. Your husband was kind enough to provide the API key." Mara says, "He told us it was a research project he was running." She withdraws the phone, and the light vanishes. I feel cold. "These numbers," Mara says, her voice a sharp, cutting blade, "are not out of touch. They are not sweet. They are gold, pure, unrefined data on a market segment every person in that room would kill to understand. And your husband has been packaging them, presenting them as his own proprietary research, and using them to build his KPIs for the last 18 months. I lean back against the glass wall. The city seems to spin for a second. 18 months. The late nights I thought he was working. He was what? Checking my servers. I don't understand. I manage. He told everyone it was a failure. He told Gareth it was a failure, Mara corrects me, her eyes unblinking. A public performance, in private, to me, He has pitched several acquisitions, all based on exclusive insights from an internal source. He never named you. He never named LoopNest. He just used your data to make himself look like a visionary. The humiliation I felt in the room is nothing compared to this. That was a shame. This is a deep, structural betrayal. This is theft. Why tell me? I ask, finding a new, harder edge in my own voice. Why now? Because, Mara says, taking a step closer. I am tired of his stories. I wanted to see the source of these brilliant insights for myself, so I told him to bring his wife, the one with the little app, to today's meeting. I wanted to see if the woman matched the data. And he did this. Mara gestures again to the boardroom door. Instead of introducing his single greatest asset, he chose to publicly execute you. He tried to bury you, right in front of me, to make sure I never thought to look too closely, to make sure you remained his out-of-touch wife and not his competition. My phone buzzes in my hand. It's an email notification. I look down. The sender is Mara Langford. I opened it. It's a forwarded message. The original is from Alfred, sent to Mara's internal address 3 weeks ago. The subject is Quarterly Growth Projections, Internal Insights. Attached is a 20-page PDF, a Heliozin internal report. I tap it open. My fingers are shaking now. I scroll through projections, market analyses, all written in Alfred's confident, impenetrable corporate jargon. And then I see it. Page 14, a section titled Case Study Failed Community App Pet Project. It's LoopNest. He describes my app, my work, my users, as a non-viable, emotionally driven project, a useful example of what happens when strategy is not data-led. He calls it a write-off, but right next to that paragraph is a graph showing user engagement. It's my data, but the labels are all wrong. The numbers are sliced in half. He's actively falsifying the report. He's calling me a failure in an email, while simultaneously using the real data to get himself promoted in person. I look up from my phone. My vision is tunneling. All I can see is Mara Langford's face, impassive as granite. He is using your work to build his career, and using your failure as his alibi. Mara states, "It's not an accusation, it's a simple fact." She holds my gaze. This is not a rescue. This is a transaction. So, Mara says, here is the offer. I will arrange a private meeting, just you, me, and 2 of our most significant strategic partners. Not in this building. No Alfred, no Gareth. You will demo LoopNest. You will show them the real dashboard. You will answer their questions. It will be next week. And Alfred? I ask. Alfred will be otherwise occupied, she says, a phrase that sounds infinitely more threatening in her gravelly voice. This is your chance, Evelyn. This is the moment you decide if you are a hobby or a founder. She turns and walks toward the elevator, her heels making no sound on the carpet. She presses the button. The golden doors slide open instantly, as if summoned. She steps inside, then turns back to me. The light from the elevator carves her silhouette. I've seen plenty of rich men, Mrs. Ashford, who are willing to light their wives on fire to keep their own seats warm, she says. Her gray eyes are absolutely chilling. The only question is, do you want to burn with him, or would you prefer I hand you the gasoline? The doors slide shut. I don't remember the drive back to Westridge Hills. I must have navigated the traffic, the winding uphill roads, the security gate, but I have no memory of it. My hands are gripping the leather steering wheel of my car, but my mind is 42 floors up, in that glass hallway, with Mara Langford's final words echoing in my ears. Gasoline. I pull into the driveway of our home. It's a statement piece, all glass and white stone and sharp, minimalist angles. It was featured in an architectural magazine 6 months ago, The Cooper Residence. A perfect blend of technology and hill country serenity. It is a perfect, sterile, beautiful lie. From the outside, it looks like a place where no one could possibly be unhappy. The house is silent. Alfred will be late. He'll be at the bar with Gareth, or maybe just his team, doing damage control. spinning a narrative. The narrative where I am, the unhinged, emotional wife. My phone, lying on the passenger seat, lights up. A text from Alfred. You embarrassed me in front of my sirs, in front of Mara. I don't know what you think you were doing, but you made me look like a fool. We are talking about this tonight. The sheer, unadulterated arrogance of it, the assumption that he is the victim, the rage that has been simmering under the shame all-day bubbles, hot and acidic. I type back 2 letters. Okay. I drop the phone onto the cool marble of the kitchen island. I don't go to the wine fridge. I don't go to the bedroom to cry. I walk straight to my office, the room Alfred calls my hobby room. It's the only room in the house he didn't design. It's dark, lined with 3 massive monitors, a server rack humming softly in the closet, and whiteboards covered in code I haven't erased. This is not a hobby room. This is a command center. I sit down, the leather of my chair creaking in the silence. I open my laptop. I logged into the administrative console of LoopNest. The numbers Mara showed me are waiting, bright and clear on my own dashboard. 1.2 million daily users. A retention rate that beats every industry benchmark. I am looking at a billion-dollar company, and he called it sweet. I open my own server logs. I need to know. My fingers fly across the keyboard, typing commands I know by heart. I am looking for a timeline. I am looking for the origin of the lie. I pull the timeline back. 18 months ago, the day I pushed the first beta of LoopNest. The memory is so clear it hurts. Alfred had been ecstatic. He'd come home with a bottle of champagne, the very expensive kind we were saving. To Evelyn, he toasted, his eyes shining with what I thought was pride. My brilliant wife and her amazing project. He'd kissed me. This is so cute. Evie, it's fantastic. I'm going to show it to my boss for fun. Just to brag about you. For fun, I type in a new command. Filtering the access logs. I look for the first IP address originating from the Helios and Capital network. It wasn't for fun. The first ping from their server to mine was 2 days after that toast. He must have given them the API key right then. I lean back, my blood turning to ice. I start to make notes. A digital breadcrumb trail of my own life. I remember the day, maybe 14 months ago. Alfred came into my office while I was working on the new user interface. He'd leaned over my shoulder. This is amazing. Evie, can you send me some of these slides? I'm ancient. I need you to teach me how to talk to Generation Z. I was flattered. I thought he was trying to connect with my work. I sent him my user persona research. I remember, a year ago, finding him in here in the middle of the night. He'd jumped, startled. He was holding his phone up, taking a picture of my whiteboard, the one where I had mapped out my entire algorithm for community matching. Sorry, love, he'd laughed, a little too quickly. I was just this genius. I wanted to remember it. I thought it was admiration. It was reconnaissance. I remember all the times he'd ask for numbers. Hey, Evie, what's your retention rate look like this quarter? And I, eager for his approval, would tell him, it's up to 45%. He'd whistle. Wow, that's really sticky. Just asking for an internal meeting, for reference. Internal reference. I opened my email. I search my archives. I searched for his name. Then I pivot. I go to my server's email logs. I look for messages sent from his Heliozen account that my system would have logged. I found it. An email from Alfred. CooperHeliozen.com to an internal mailing list. Subject internal case study, emerging market behaviors. Sent 10 months ago. Right after LoopNest had its first massive viral growth spurt. He didn't CC me. The attachment is my data, my graphs, my numbers. He'd just put them on a Heliozen-branded PowerPoint template, and then the memories of his voice, his condescending, loving voice. You're brilliant. Evelyn, you really are. But you just don't understand the way the financial world operates. It's a different beast. Let me handle the money side of things. You just focus on making your art. This tech stuff is great, but you need someone to translate it into a language that people with capital can actually understand. He wasn't translating, he was stealing. He was taking my work, my genius, and presenting it as his own insight, while simultaneously building a narrative that I, the actual source, was a ditzy, out-of-touch wife playing with a cute project. The humiliation I felt in that boardroom, the hot, stinging shame, finally drains away. It's replaced by a cold, precise, and absolute rage. This isn't the first time he's used me. This is a pattern. This is the foundation of our entire 3-year marriage. I started the download. I opened a new terminal window. I run a full log dump, every API access request, every IP address that has ever pinged my server from a Heliozin domain. Every query, every timestamp, every data packet. It's gigabytes of data. It will prove exactly when he looked, what he took, and how closely it correlates with every big win he's ever bragged about at work. While the data streams, I copy all of it, the emails, the screenshots, the log files. I move it all onto a new, encrypted solid-state drive, the kind you can't crack without a court order. When the copy is complete, I eject the drive. I go back into my admin console with 3 lines of code. He is locked out. Every dashboard he has at Heliozin, every slide he has built, just went dark. I sit back in my chair, the hard drive warm in my hand. The house is completely, perfectly silent. Alfred will be home soon, expecting a fight, expecting tears, expecting me to apologize. For the first time in my life, I think if he disappeared tomorrow, my life would feel lighter, not heavier. I didn't sleep. Alfred came home around 2 a.m, smelling of expensive whiskey and self-satisfaction. He must have spun his narrative well. He found me in the guest room, the door locked. He jiggled the handle, annoyed. "Evie, what is this? Open the door." "I'm tired, Alfred," I said through the wood. "I don't want to talk." "You don't get to be tired," he'd snapped, his voice a low hiss. "You humiliated me. We will fix this in the morning." He'd stalked off, and I heard the slam of our bedroom door. Now, at 6:15 in the morning, the sun is just a gray smear over the hills. I'm in my office, running on pure, uncut adrenaline. My laptop screen is bright in the gloom, and a new email is sitting in my inbox. It's not in my main inbox. It's in a spam folder, routed there by filters. But I'm checking everything. The sender address is R. Ortiz Heliozin Internal. Net. The subject is Your Out of Touch app. My fingers hover over the trackpad. This could be a trap. It could be one of Alfred's IT friends, checking to see if I'm compromised. But the subject line, it's too specific. It uses his exact words. I clicked it. The body is short, and it's encrypted. Just a block of PGP text. But at the bottom, there's a simple line in plain text. "My key is on the MIT server. You'll find me, R. I have my own PGP key. I'm a developer. Of course I do. I find Riley Ortiz's public key in seconds, import it, and decrypt the message. I'm Riley Ortiz. I'm in data infrastructure. I saw your logs go dark at 0300 this morning. Smart. Alfred is already on a rampage. He's been trying to access a critical data source and is blaming a network failure. I am the one he's blaming. You need to talk to me before he asks me to fix the problem, which means wiping the server logs. Meet me, now." There's an address. It's a 24/7 diner, a greasy spoon place near the industrial tech park south of the river. Not a place anyone from Heliozin would ever be seen. I'm out of the house in 5 minutes. The diner smells of stale coffee and industrial disinfectant. The lighting is a hostel, buzzing yellow. At this hour, it's just a few truckers and a table of night shift coders, and in a back booth, a young woman. Or maybe she's just a kid. She can't be more than 25. She has dark, tired circles under her eyes, a mass of black curly hair pulled into a messy bun, and she's wearing a black hoodie with a security conference logo on it. She's staring intently into a battle-scarred laptop covered in stickers, one hand wrapped around a white ceramic mug. This is Riley Ortiz. I slid into the booth opposite her. She doesn't look up. "You're Evelyn Ashford," she states. It's not a question. "You're Riley Ortiz. I replied. She finally looks up. Her eyes are sharp, intelligent, and utterly exhausted. "You're taller than he made you sound," she says. "He makes you sound like a teacup poodle." "He called me out of touch yesterday, in front of the board," I say. Riley gives a short, mirthless laugh. "Yeah, I heard. The whole IT floor heard. That's why I'm here." She sips her coffee. "You revoked his API key. That was beautiful. He came in at 5 this morning, demanding we restore access. I got to look him right in the face and tell him the connection wasn't down. The key was just invalid. Looks like the source locked you out, Mr. Cooper," the look on his face. "He's been lying," I say, my voice flat. "Lying." Riley snorts. "Lying is a misdemeanor. This guy is committing grand larceny. Look." She spins her laptop around. The screen is a terrifying, beautiful wall of black and green text, a server log. "This is our internal network log, cross-referenced with your server pings," Riley says, her finger tapping the screen. "Every connection from a Helios and IP to your API, all logged. And look here." She points to a cluster of entries. Timestamp, 3:04 a.m., 3:16 a.m., 4:20 a.m., all from his personal office terminal. This is 2 nights before the big Q2 partner meeting. He's running queries all night, pulling your cohort data. Then he walks into that meeting, and I quote, "Projects a 90% success rate on our new target demographic based on my proprietary model." She scrolls. And this is my favorite part. The man doesn't just steal data. He's lazy. He doesn't even know how to repackage it. She tabs to a different window. It's a folder full of image files. She clicks one. It's a screenshot. My dashboard. It is a pixel-perfect, high-resolution screenshot of my LoopNest administrative dashboard. "He's been presenting this," Riley says, "as his predictive behavior model for almost a year. He told the partners it was a custom-built piece of software he commissioned. My job," she says, her voice full of contempt, "was to get these screenshots, clean the metadata, and put them in his PowerPoint slides for him." I stare at the screen, my work, my UI, my design, all passed off as his. "It's not just you," Riley says, her voice suddenly softer. She closes the log window. "That's why I'm here. Alfred has a pattern." "What do you mean?" "About a year ago, we had an analyst, Naomi Price, brilliant. She built an actual, real model for predicting micro-loan defaults. Alfred was mentoring her. He borrowed her model for 1 presentation, then 2, then, suddenly, it was his model. When she tried to speak up, he told Gareth she was unstable and not a team player. Naomi got transferred to a back-office compliance role in Omaha. She quit 6 weeks later, blacklisted. I feel a wave of nausea. This isn't just about me and him. This is who he is. "I am not Naomi," I say. "I know," Riley says. "You own the server. That's why I did this." She reaches into her hoodie pocket and pulls out a USB drive. It's bright, lipstick red. She slides it across the Formica table. It feels heavy as a brick. "What is it?" "It's a full data dump. Everything I just showed you, and more. All the logs Alfred told me to dredge this morning. When he first asked me to clean up some unnecessary logs about a month ago, I got suspicious. VPs don't care about log size, so I made a backup. That's my private copy. Everything he thinks he's about to delete is on that drive." I look at the small red drive, then back at her. "You're risking your entire career," I say quietly. "Why?" Riley looks down at her coffee mug, turning it in her hands. "First, because I'm the one who has to clean up his messes, and I'm sick of it. Second, Naomi Price was my friend. And third," she looks up, and her eyes are hard, "I hate guys like him. I hate the VPs who get the 7-figure bonus for stealing the work of people who actually build things." I pick up the drive and slide it into my pocket. It feels like a weapon. We sit in silence for a moment, just the hum of the diner's refrigerators. "So, what's the play?" Riley asks. I shake my head, my mind racing. I met Mara Langford. She talked to me yesterday. Riley's eyebrows shoot up. Mara? She's real. I thought she was a myth. What did she say? She knows. She's the one who showed me his internal reports. She offered me a private demo. With partners. Without Alfred. Riley leans back, a slow smile spreading across her face. Oh, that's beautiful. That is so beautiful. She's offering me gasoline, I murmured. What? Nothing. We have a map now, I say, thinking aloud. We have the pattern. He takes the data from LoopNest. He presents it as his own insight, Riley adds, catching on. He gets bonuses. He gets new funds to manage. He builds his reputation as a visionary. And at the same time, Riley finishes, her voice cold, he tells the entire world that you, the real source, are a failed experiment, a hobby. He devalues you so no one ever thinks to check your work, so you're never in the same room. He creates a firewall of bullshit, with him as the gatekeeper. I just nod. That's it. That's the entire, grotesque, 3-year plan. I start to slide out of the booth. Thank you, Riley. I don't know how to. Don't thank me, she says, cutting me off. She's all business again. Just don't waste it. I'm putting my job on this little red drive. You'd better use it. I stand up and drive a heavy solid weight in my pocket. Riley, I say, one last question. Why did you trust me? How did you know I'd... She looks up at me, a final, weary look. Heliozen had a female founder they were going to acquire about 5 years ago, she says. They brought her in, mentored her, and then the deal fell apart. 6 months later, they launched a competing product based on her exact tech. She tried to sue. She had no proof, no data, no logs. She was crushed. Riley leans forward, her voice a whisper. She didn't have what's on that drive. You do. So don't you dare waste this. He came home late. I was in the kitchen, sitting in the dark, just watching the geometric shadows the moonlight cast on the white stone floor. The red USB drive was in my pocket, a small, hard rectangle against my thigh. I heard the garage door, the click of the alarm being disarmed, the sound of his keys hitting the marble counter in the hall. He didn't come in right away. I heard the pop of a cork, the glug-glug of wine. Then he appeared in the kitchen doorway, a silhouette against the hall light, glass in hand. He flicked on the kitchen lights, and I winced. He looked, as he always did after a crisis, like a leader. His tie was loosened. His sleeves were rolled up his forearms. He had a faint smear of what looked like dark red lipstick on his collar, just below the jawline, and the air around him was a cloud of expensive wine and a floral, unfamiliar perfume. He was performing as an exhausted, powerful man. Evelyn, he said, his voice a low, tired sigh. We need to talk. I just looked at him. I didn't say anything. That, he said, taking a sip of his wine, was the single most graceless, unprofessional move I have ever seen, walking out of a board meeting, my wife, in front of Mara Langford. She texted me, I said, my voice flat. She what? He almost laughed. Evie, she's Mara Langford. She was being polite. She was probably texting her assistant. You don't just walk out. You embarrassed me. You made me look like I can't even manage my own home, let alone a $2 billion fund. He walked closer, setting his glass on the counter. He leaned against it, crossing his arms, the posture of a man settling in for a lecture. Do you have any idea what you've done? He continued, his voice full of practiced disappointment. You've put our entire career path at risk, mine and yours, by association. They need to see stability, and you showed them a circus. I stood up. You called me out of touch. The words just hung there, simple and sharp. He actually rolled his eyes. He threw his head back and sighed, as if I was the most unreasonable, most exhausting child. Oh my God, that's what this is about. He pushed off the counter and walked toward me. Evelyn, it was a joke. It was boardroom banter. I was managing them. I was diffusing the tension. You are so sensitive. He tried to touch my face, and I flinched. His eyes hardened. I am the only person who has ever believed in that app. I am the one who bragged about you. I am the one who told everyone how brilliant my wife was. And you repay me by making me look like a fool, all because of one little, harmless joke. This was his magic. The way he could spin the world until I was the one who was crazy. I was the one who was wrong. But I had the red drive in my pocket. I had the logs. So, he said, his voice suddenly casual. Too casual. You were out there for, 10 minutes? What did you two even talk about, Mara and you? He was probing. He was hunting. He needed to know what I knew. She just asked about the app, I said, my voice carefully neutral. She was curious about it. Curious, he repeated. How curious? Did you mention anything technical, anything about, the API or the logs? There it was, the fear, just a flicker. But I saw it. He knew I'd revoke the key. Riley was right. I just answered her questions. Alfred, I said. I was polite. She's a partner. He stared at me for a long, heavy moment. He was trying to read me, trying to see if I was lying. I held his gaze, my heart hammering, but I kept my face a perfect, porcelain blank. Right, he said finally, unconvinced. Well, don't do it again. You stay in your lane. Evie, I'll handle the business. He picked up his wine and walked out of the room, leaving the scent of perfume and betrayal behind. The next morning, I was in my office when the email arrived. It was not from Heliosen, it was from Sullivan. Cromwell Taft, a law firm so powerful and so expensive, their name alone was a weapon. The subject, urgent notice regarding intellectual property and proprietary data. My blood went cold. I opened it. It was a perfectly crafted legal document. All whereas, and hereinafter. It didn't accuse me of anything. Not directly. It simply reminded me that as the spouse of a senior vice president at Heliosen Capital, any works, inventions, or data models I had created could be considered derivative works, based on proprietary information, conversations, and strategic insights provided by my husband, Alfred Cooper. It was a warning shot. It was an intellectual property claim, wrapped in polite legalese. It was a cease and desist in spirit, implying that if I tried to do anything with LoopNest, they would argue that he was the source of the idea, and that Heliosen, by extension, had a claim. I was still staring at it, my hands shaking. When Alfred came home that evening, he was a different man tonight. No posturing, no tired leader. He was all soft edges and a worried brow. He walked into my office and saw the email on my screen. He sighed, a performance of deep, paternal concern. Ah, he said. You saw it. Good. I wanted to talk to you about that. I just looked at him. You did this. I had our lawyers draft it, he corrected me, his voice gentle. Just to be safe. For you. For us. How is suing me for me? I'm not suing you, he said, holding his hands up. I'm protecting you, Evelyn. You don't understand these people. You had a private chat with Mara Langford. God knows what you said. If you go around doing things, acting like this app is 100% yours, you're going to get yourself into serious, serious trouble. He was pacing now, spinning his web. They could say you used my proprietary insights. They could say I gave you the data. They could come after me. I am protecting us. This just puts a legal firewall up. It keeps you safe. It keeps us safe. He stopped and put his hands on my desk, leaning in close. His eyes were wide, sincere. He was a phenomenal liar. Look, he said. Here's what we do. It's simple. You just pause. Put the app in maintenance mode, just for a few weeks. Stop collecting new data. Just let it all cool down. Take a breath. He smiled, a kind, reassuring smile. You do that for me, And I will go to bat for you. I will talk to Mara. I will smooth this all over. I'll tell her you were just stressed. And when this blows over, I'll even get you a new position. We can bring you on as an unofficial consultant at the firm. You can work with my team, properly. I just stared at him. Put the app in maintenance mode. Stop collecting data. He wasn't trying to protect me. He was trying to shut down the server. He was trying to get me to turn off the evidence. He was trying to lock me in a cage he'd designed. An unofficial consultant, with no title, no power, and no ownership. This was the pattern. Every time I had something of value, he would find a way to protect me, to wrap it in layers of lawyers and loving concern, until it wasn't mine anymore. I nodded slowly. A consultant, I said. Let me think about that. Alfred, he smiled. Triumphant. He thought he'd won. That's my girl, he said, patting my hand. You just think about it. We're a team. He left me in the dark. I waited until I heard the sound of his shower running. I waited until I was sure he was asleep, his deep, even breathing filling the silence of the glass house. I went to my office. I locked the door. I took out my phone and the encrypted number Mara had texted me from. My fingers were shaking, but not from fear, from clarity. I dialed. It rang twice. Langford, she answered. No hello. It's Evelyn Ashford, I said, my voice low. He's trying to shut me down. He sent his lawyers. I expected as much. Mara's voice came back, bored. Did you think he'd just apologize? No, I said. I looked at the red USB drive sitting next to my keyboard. I looked at the legal threat on my screen. I'm calling about your offer, the private demo. It's on the table. If I do this, I said, and the words came out, cold and hard. If I side with you, I could lose my husband. I could lose this house. He'll fight me on everything. I know how he operates. I paused, and I took a deep breath. This was it. The transaction. I need to know what I get, I said, my voice no longer a whisper. Besides just seeing him lose everything, Mara did not summon me back to the tower. There was a pause after my demand, just a beat of silence on the encrypted line, and then her gravelly voice. Good. You are worth my time. My car will be at your gate at 10 a.m. tomorrow. Do not tell your husband you are leaving. The car was a black, nondescript sedan, the kind that costs $200,000 specifically because it looks like any other luxury car. It did not take me to the gleaming, obvious Helios Tower. It took me to a smaller, older building downtown, one made of gray stone with no name on the directory. A private elevator opened into a silent penthouse. This was the Helios private office. There was no logo on the wall, just a quiet expanse of dark wood, smoked glass, and leather-bound books that looked like they had never been opened. The air was still. The only sound was the faint hum of screens, dozens of them, displaying global market data, not LoopNest. Mara was standing by a window, not in a suit, but in a simple, dark cashmere sweater and slacks that probably cost more than my car. She didn't turn when I entered. You asked what you get, she said, her voice cutting into the silence. She gestured to the massive oak desk. A tablet was resting on it. That is what you get. I walked over. It was not a legal threat. It was a term sheet. I read it. My mind racing. I was a developer. But I had learned to read business. A new entity, Mara said, finally turning. Her gray eyes were flat. A Delaware C Corp. I've already had the name reserved. She paused, and I read the name at the top of the document. Ashford Loop Labs. My name. My maiden name. Not Cooper. A chill ran down my spine. But it was not fear. It was recognition. LoopNest is the central asset, she continued, walking to the desk. You will assign all intellectual property, all code, all data, to this new corporation. In exchange, I will personally lead a $5 million seed round. I will take a 20% minority stake. I looked up, my throat dry. And control? You, Mara said, tapping the tablet. Remain CEO. You keep the board majority. You have full control. I am an investor, a very quiet, very well-funded investor. I looked at the numbers. They were good. They were more than good. Why? This is your legal fortress, Evelyn, she said, her voice dropping. Right now, that fool you married is having his lawyers at Sullivan and Cromwell draft a motion to have Loopnest declared marital property. He thinks he can tie it up in a divorce, claim he was your partner, and take half, or all of it. He thinks it's an asset, like the house or the art. She pointed to the term sheet again. But if you transfer the app to a new corporation before any legal action is filed, and that corporation takes on a major outside investor, it's no longer a marital asset. It's a company. It's a legal entity, insulated from your personal life. His lawyers can't get their claws into a corporation's IP. This, she said, is how you cut him off at the knees before he even knows the fight has started. This isn't just about helping me, I said, understanding the transaction. No, Mara agreed. It's not. Your husband has been lying to my limited partners for 18 months. He has used faked data, your data, to secure hundreds of millions of dollars in fund allocations, those LPs, she said, with a very thin, very cold smile, are very displeased. They are, however, very interested in investing in the real source of his vision. They want in on Loopnest, but only if he is out. The plan unfolded over the next 72 hours. It was a masterpiece of corporate warfare, executed in complete silence. I went home and played the role of the contrite, thinking wife. I told Alfred I was seriously considering his offer to be a consultant. I told him I'd paused the app's new data collection, a lie he readily accepted because he had no way to verify it. Meanwhile, I was living a second life. Mara's personal lawyer, a quiet, terrifyingly efficient woman, contacted me. I spent my nights in my office, not on code, but on strategy. First, the legal transfer. Following the lawyer's precise instructions, I signed the electronic documents. I transferred to the Loopnest domain. I assigned the entire codebase, which was sitting in my private, unshared GitHub repository, to Ashford Loop Labs. I created new corporate bank accounts and routed all App Store and Google Play revenue streams to them. It was all perfectly, completely legal. It had always been in my name. His one fatal mistake was that in his arrogance, he never thought to put his own name on my silly hobby. Next, the alliance. I sent an encrypted message to Riley Ortiz. The plan is in motion. Can you help? Her reply was instant. Already am. Alfred has been trying to bypass your new API key. He's trying to brute force a connection through an old developer port. Every attempt is being logged as unauthorized access. He's no longer your husband trying to check your data. He's an external agent from a competing firm actively trying to hack your new company. I've got a whole new file of evidence for Mara. Then, I did the hardest part. I found Naomi Price on LinkedIn, the analyst who had been banished to Omaha. I sent her an email, my heart pounding. I told her who I was. I told her what Alfred had done to me. I told her I had Mara Langford and a team of lawyers. I am not asking you to go public, I wrote. I know what he's capable of, but I am asking you to fight. I have a secure, anonymous email address managed by my lawyer. Just tell your story, the dates, the project, the words he used. He is counting on us all being too isolated and too afraid to ever talk to each other. She didn't reply for a day. I contacted 2 other names Riley had given me. One's email bounced. The other, a junior analyst, never responded. I felt a spike of despair. Then, an email from Mara's lawyer. We're good. I've received 2 separate, anonymous, and fully corroborating statements. They've been notarized. We have enough to establish a clear pattern of behavior. The plan was set. Mara, now armed with the real data, Riley's new hacking logs, and the anonymous testimony, was going to call an emergency board meeting. She would, in her official capacity as managing partner, formally question the massive discrepancy between the data Alfred had presented to the LPs and the reality of the app, she was going to trigger a full, internal, and unavoidable investigation. That evening, the lawyer sent me the final incorporation papers for Ashford Loop Labs. I printed the last page, the signature page. I sat at my desk, the red drive from Riley sitting next to me like a small, sleeping dragon. In the living room, I could hear Alfred on a loud, cheerful call, bragging to a colleague about an easy win from the day. I looked at the line on the paper. It waited for my name, Evelyn Ashford, CEO, founder. I picked up a pen, and my hand was perfectly steady. I signed my name, not Mrs. Cooper, not Evie, Ashford. I looked at the signature. It was the first time I had signed something that was entirely mine, entirely real. The woman who had walked into that boardroom 3 days ago was gone. This woman was a CEO. This woman was the one holding the gasoline. The emergency meeting was called for 4 p.m. Alfred was a different kind of nervous all day. Not the my life is over nervous, but the how do I spin this nervous. He was on the phone, pacing the glass walls of our house, talking in low, urgent tones to lawyers and, I assumed, to Gareth. He was annoyed when I told him I was summoned. 2. Mara's office must have sent it by mistake, he'd said, not looking at me. No, Alfred. The email was very specific. Evelyn Ashford, founder of Loop Nest. They want me there. A flicker of his old arrogance returned. Fine. Good. You'll be there to back me up. You'll be there to tell them this is all a misunderstanding, that you're pausing the app like we discussed, that it's all part of our team strategy. I just nodded, my face a mask of wifely compliance. Of course. Alfred, our team strategy. I drove myself. We walked into the main conference room, the one from the other day, separately. This time, the room was full. Not just the partners. Lawyers I didn't recognize were sitting in the back. Gareth was at the head of the table, looking pale, and at the other end, in the seat of power, sat Mara Langford. Alfred, ever the performer, walked in with a confident, slightly put-upon stride. He was the brilliant VP, annoyed at having his time wasted by what, a network failure, a misunderstanding. He had no idea he had an agenda. He had no idea I had signed my name to a new corporation, that I was no longer Mrs. Cooper in any way that mattered. He took his seat, and I took mine. Not at the edge of the room this time, but at the table, 2 seats down from Mara. I placed my laptop on the polished obsidian, right next to my water glass. Alfred shot me a look. What are you doing? I met his gaze and smiled. A tiny, bright, cold smile. Thank you all for coming on short notice, Mara began, her voice cutting through the silence. She didn't stand. She didn't need to. We are here to discuss a significant discrepancy in the data presented to this firm's limited partners. Data that has been used to secure several $100 million in fund allocations. A screen flickered to life. A slide appeared. It was simple, brutal. 2 columns. On the left, Loop Nest data, per A, Cooper, Q3 report. It showed a small, stagnant user base, a daily active user count, a DAU of around 300,000. It listed revenue as negligible. On the right, Loop Nest data, live API. It showed a DAU of 1.2 million. It showed a sharp, upward curving revenue graph. It listed a retention rate of over 60%. The numbers were not just different. One side described a failure, the other described a rocket ship. Alfred stared at it. His mask of confidence didn't crack, but he paled. He was looking for the angle. The way to spin this. Gareth, as the man in the hot seat, spoke first. He turned to Alfred, his voice tight. Alfred, explain this. Why, in the official report you submitted to me, is your DAU listed at 1/3 of the actual number? What the hell am I looking at? Alfred leaned forward. He put on his calm, reasonable man voice. Gareth, Mara, thank you for flagging this. I was actually about to prepare a report on this very issue. A masterful lie. Even I had to admit. The numbers on the right, he said, gesturing to my data, are, frankly, junk. They are unverified. Raw. We've been tracking a significant, massive bot traffic surge from overseas. My numbers, the ones on the left, are the verified numbers, the real users. I was just being conservative, respecting our firm's rigorous due diligence. He smiled, as if this was all a simple, technical misunderstanding. My wife, he said, turning to me with a paternal warmth that made my skin crawl, is a brilliant creator, but she's not a data scientist. She was seeing the gross numbers and getting excited. I was doing my job, which is to find the truth for our partners. Bot traffic, Mara repeated, her voice dead. And unverified data, Alfred added, nodding. I see. Mara's gray eyes swiveled from him to me. Evelyn, since your unverified app is the one in question, perhaps you could verify it. This was my cue. I didn't say a word. I just turned on my laptop, which was already connected to the room's Wi-Fi, and hit the command to share my screen. The slide disappeared. My live dashboard, the real one, the admin console of LoopNest, flashed onto the massive screen. The room went silent. You could see the map of the United States, lit up with real-time user activity. You could see the DAU counter ticking up in real time as new users logged in. You could see the revenue for the day, already in the tens of thousands. This is the live administrative console, I said, my voice clear and carrying across the table. As you can see, the user count is just over 1.2 million for the last 24 hours. Those are not bots. Those are verified, phone number authenticated accounts. I clicked a tab. This is our retention cohort. You can see the 62% retention at day 30, which Alfred's verified report seems to have missed. I clicked again. And this is our real-time revenue stream from our in-app community rewards. It is, as you can see, not negligible at all. Alfred was staring at the screen. He looked like he had been punched in the stomach. He was watching his lie, his entire carefully constructed narrative, dissolve in high definition. A new partner, a man I didn't know, a lawyerly type with a sharp face, looked at me. Ms. Ashford, I'm sorry. Is it Ms. or Mrs.? Ms. Ashford, I said. Ms. Ashford, he continued. This is compelling. Can you tell me, what was your formal role in Mr. Cooper's presentations? Did he ever offer to formalize your position, given that you were the source of, well, all of this? I looked at Alfred. He was glaring at me, a silent, desperate command. I turned back to the partner. No, I was never offered a formal role. In every story Alfred told, every meeting he mentioned, I was the wife at home, playing with an app. The air in the room became thick, toxic. Gareth, who had been Alfred's primary ally, had gone completely silent. He was leaning back in his chair, his arms crossed, his face a mask of cold fury. He was realizing how badly Alfred had exposed him. This is a setup, Alfred suddenly burst out, his voice too loud. My wife is confused. She's emotional. We were having marital problems, and she's colluding with someone. With whom? Mr. Cooper. Mara's voice sliced him off. With the data. She pressed a button. A video call appeared on the screen. The image was of a person in shadow, their voice digitally modulated, but I knew that sharp, intelligent cadence. It was Riley. This is a representative from our data infrastructure team, Mara said. Riley, if you would. For the past 18 months, Riley's disguised voice said, we have logged multiple persistent API access requests from Mr. Cooper's terminal to an external server, the one belonging to LoopNest. These requests consistently happened in the middle of the night, in the 48 hours directly preceding every major partner meeting and LP pitch. A new slide came up. It was a timeline. On the top, the dates of Alfred's pitches. On the bottom, the timestamps of his data pulled from my server. They were a perfect, damning match. This, Riley's voice concluded, was not looking at his wife's hobby. This was a systematic data harvesting operation, run from a Heliozen terminal, for the express purpose of materials that were then presented as Mr. Cooper's own work. The video call ended. The screen went black. Alfred was ashen. He was looking from Gareth to Mara, his mouth opening and closing. The brilliant VP was gone. In his place was a small, terrified, cornered man. Gareth said nothing. He just stared at the wall. He was done. A lawyer in the back said, "Ms. Langford, this raises serious questions of fiduciary duty, not to mention intellectual property. Was this data presented to LPs under the name of Heliozen or as Mr. Cooper's personal insight?" This was it. The kill shot. Mara held up a hand. "This," she said, "was merely a preliminary review. I am now officially convening a full, expanded board meeting, 9 a.m. tomorrow, in this room." She looked at me. "Ms. Ashford, you will be in attendance. You will bring your laptop, all your logs, and your lawyer." Then, she turned her cold, gray eyes on my husband. "Alfred, you will be here. You will bring everything you have ever sent to an LP, and you will bring your own lawyer. I suggest you retain one from Sullivan and Cromwell. It looks like you're going to need them." The 9 a.m. meeting was not a meeting. It was a tribunal. The room was packed. Not just the partners from yesterday, but the major limited partners, the ones who represented the pension funds, the university endowments, the real money. They sat, silent and grim, against the windows. My lawyer, the one Mara had provided, sat to my left. Gareth sat at the table, looking like a man who hadn't slept, staring at his own hands, and across from me, Alfred. He was flanked by two severe-looking men from Sullivan Cromwell, his hair perfectly coiffed. He looked like he was about to give a presentation, not be dissected. I was the only one in the room not in a dark suit. I wore a simple, sleeveless sheath dress. My laptop was open. My dashboard was live. One of Alfred's lawyers, a man with a voice as smooth and expensive as polished marble, opened. "Let us be clear on the facts," he began, addressing the LPs, not Mara. "There has been no theft of intellectual property. Cooper, acting in his capacity as a visionary in the tech consumer space, simply identified and exploited a valuable insight from a close, personal source. He translated a family project into a viable, marketable strategy for this firm's investors. That is not a crime. That is, in fact, what you pay him to do. It is called vision." A family project. The words hung in the air, designed to minimize me, to turn me into a hobbyist wife again. Mara let the silence sit for a moment. Then she leaned forward. She did not look at the lawyer. Her eyes were locked on Alfred. "Alfred," she said, her voice dangerously soft, "you have sold yourself to our LPs for 2 years as the man who understands this market, who has this unique, proprietary insight." She steepled her fingers. "So, prove it. Without your notes, without your lawyers. Explain the core architecture of LoopNest. If this is the insight you understand so deeply, tell us, how does the user recommendation model work?" Alfred's expensive, confident posture cracked. It was a hairline fracture. But I saw it. He had his talking points. This was not one of them. "It's a highly complex system, Mara," he said, attempting his charming, man-to-man voice. "I'm sure it is. Humor us," she replied. "It's based on machine learning," he said, grabbing the first buzzword he could find. "It analyzes predictive behavior. It creates a community-driven engagement loop. It's about connectivity." He was reciting the marketing copy I wrote in my hobby room 3 years ago. A partner at the end of the table, one of the new LPs, leaned forward. "The logic, Mr. Cooper, not the marketing. What is the algorithm? How does it match user A to user B? What is the data flow?" Alfred looked at him, and for the first time, he was completely, utterly blank. He had no idea. He had never asked. He had just seen the graphs, the numbers, the final product, and stolen it. He had no idea how the weighted scoring system worked, how I prioritized shared interests over geographic proximity, and how I handled the data ingestion from our community APIs. He was a man who had claimed to discover a new continent, and he couldn't even point to it on a map. He just stared. It's proprietary. A quiet, suffocating silence filled the room. Everyone saw it. The man was a fraud. A new voice, a woman from one of the endowments, turned to me. Her gaze was sharp, not unkind, but appraising. "Ms. Ashford, perhaps you could explain it to us." This was the moment. I nodded. I didn't share my main dashboard. I shared a different screen, one I had prepared. "This is the system architecture flowchart," I said, my voice clear and steady. The simple, clean diagram filled the massive screen. It's not machine learning, not yet. It's a weighted logic model. Users are matched based on 5 key data points: shared interests, active hours, proximity, community goals, and a negative weight for reported user behavior. The data flows from the user profile, is scored by this logic, and then presented to the matching API. I clicked to another tab. This is the 12-month performance of that logic. A series of graphs appeared. You can see where I iterated on the weighting in Q3, which resulted in a 15% increase in our 30-day retention. It's all right here. I spoke for maybe 90 seconds. In that time, I proved I had built the app, understood the app, and was the app. The vision Alfred had been selling was, in fact, me, late at night, debugging code. I stopped sharing my screen. Mara's lawyer, my lawyer, spoke into the silence. "Thank you. Ms. Ashford, if I could now direct everyone's attention to the main screen." An email appeared, an email from Alfred, sent from his Heliozen account, to 2 of the LPs sitting in this very room. The subject line was Prototype and Proof of Concept, the new community thesis. "As you can see," the lawyer said, his voice cold. "In this email, dated 6 months ago, Mr. Cooper claims, and I quote, that he personally led the development of a prototype application to prove the viability of this community-driven concept. He is, of course, referring to LoopNest. He wasn't just interpreting his wife's data. Gentlemen, he was claiming he built her company." Alfred sank 2 inches in his chair. And then, the trap, which had been set so carefully, finally snapped shut. At an LP near the window, a man named Marcus Thorne, who ran one of the largest funds in Boston, spoke for the first time. His voice was quiet, but it carried absolute authority. "Alfred," he said. He didn't sound angry. He sounded disappointed. "I have a simple question." He waited until Alfred, pale and sweating, looked at him. "Yesterday," Marcus said, "we heard testimony that you publicly dismissed this very app in a partner meeting. You called it out of touch. You called it a silly hobby. You diminished the founder, who we now see as your wife." He leaned forward, his hands clasped. "But in this pitch deck," he gestured to the screen, "the one you sent me last quarter, you used this same app's data as your primary evidence, your proof of concept for your entire investment thesis. You used it to prove your own ability to spot trends." Marcus's eyes were like ice. "So which is it? Alfred is the app a failed, out-of-touch hobby, or is it the cornerstone of your entire career?" Alfred Cooper, the brilliant VP, the man of vision, said nothing. He had no answer. He was a fraud. And now the room, the whole world, knew it, before he could even try to find a word. I played my final card. "If I may," I said, and every head turned to me. "I believe I can clarify the app's current value." Mara nodded. I took control of the screen one last time, my dashboard, but a hidden tab, one I had built just for this moment. "While Heliozen has been debating whether LoopNest is a hobby or a vision," I said, "my new company, Ashford Loop Labs, has been entertaining other offers." On the screen, a new document appeared, a term sheet, crisp, official, and undeniable. "This is a signed term sheet. Received this morning from a competing top-tier venture fund, I said. It's for our Series A. It gives Ashford Loop Labs a post-money valuation of $150 million. I let that number hang in the air. A $150 million hobby. Alfred's face was white as paper. He looked like he was going to be sick. And then, the twist. The final, beautiful, cold-blooded twist Mara and I had planned. Marcus Thorne, the LP from Boston, spoke again. He looked at me. He looked at Mara, and then his gaze, which was absolutely glacial, settled on Alfred. I want to be perfectly clear, Marcus said, his voice cutting through the stunned silence. That term sheet is from my fund. Alfred's head snapped toward him. Ms. Langford introduced me to Ms. Ashford 3 days ago, Marcus said. Standing up, he was already done with this meeting. We had a 2-hour demo. We saw the technology, we saw the data, and we met the actual founder, and we made our decision. He walked toward the door, then stopped, and looked back at the man he had once trusted. So, yes, Alfred, you were right. You did find a trend. But you were so busy calling your wife out of touch that you just lost a $150 million deal that my firm is now, officially, extremely excited to take. As Marcus Thorne left, the room fractured. The LP stood up, a quiet, angry herd. They filed out, not looking at Alfred. The tribunal was over. The execution was now a private matter. This meeting is paused, Mara said, her voice flat. Ms. Ashford, my lawyer, please wait outside. My lawyer and I stood and walked out, back into the glass-walled corridor. The silence was absolute. I stood, just as I had days before, looking down at the city of Austin. This time, I didn't feel small. I felt empty. The adrenaline that had been coursing through me for 3 days was gone, leaving a strange, hollow ache. The rage was gone. Even the triumph felt thin. Through the smoked glass wall of the conference room, I could see the figures inside. Alfred's lawyers were packing their briefcases, their faces grim. They were done. Gareth was standing by the window, his back to the room. Mara was seated, as was Alfred. He was no longer the confident VP. He was slumped in his chair, his head in his hands. For the first time since this started, I saw him, not the monster, not the liar, not the husband, just a man who had built his entire identity on a lie, and the lie had just been pulled out from under him. He looked like a man who had just seen the one in front of his $150 million valuation. He looked like he was drowning. 42 stories in the air. The door opened. Mara's head of legal motioned us back in. They're ready. We took our seats. The room was mostly empty now, just the core partners. Alfred had lifted his head. His face was a waxy, pale mask, a partner I didn't know. The head of compliance, read from a single sheet of paper. The executive board of Heliozin Capital, he read, his voice a monotone, has voted to open a formal, internal investigation into Mr. Alfred Cooper for the willful misrepresentation of material data to partners and limited partners. Alfred flinched, as if struck. Effective immediately, the man continued. Mr. Cooper is placed on indefinite administrative leave. He is suspended. All access to Heliozin internal systems, email, and communications will be revoked. He is forbidden from contacting any client or limited partner of this firm. A car will be waiting downstairs to escort you home. Gareth finally turned around. His face was cold. He looked at Alfred, his one-time protégé. Alfred, Gareth said, his voice quiet but brutal. Even if our lawyers find no clear, actionable illegality, the trust is gone. In our business, you know what that means. I knew what it meant. Everyone knew. Trust wasn't just part of the job. It was the entire job. You could be wrong, but you could not be a liar. He was done. His career at Heliozin, the career he had sacrificed me for, was over. The car ride home was silent for the first 10 minutes. He hadn't been escorted. I had just waited. We rode the elevator down, a foot of toxic silence between us, and walked to my car. What else was there to do? As I drove us through downtown, he finally spoke. His voice was a rasp, a small, weak thing. "You didn't have to do that, Evie." I kept my eyes on the road. "The pressure," he whispered. "You have no idea. The pressure in that room, the things they expect. I was just trying to protect you from this world. It's not for people like it's not for you." He was still doing it, still trying to gaslight me, even now. "I just borrowed the app's data," he said, the words tumbling out. "A few times, just to make the models work, just to prove my thesis. It was for us, Evie, for this house, for our life. Everything I did for us. I didn't argue, I didn't yell, I didn't cry. I just pulled up at a red light. I took my phone from its cradle. I didn't say a word. I just opened my email. I opened the file. I held the phone up, the screen bright in the afternoon light. The incorporation documents for Ashford Loop Labs. I swiped. The $150 million term sheet from Marcus Thorne's fund. I swiped again. The new partnership agreement, signed by me and Mara Langford. His name was nowhere. His name didn't exist in this new world I had built in the last 3 days. He stared at the screen, his face ashen. He saw the name, Ashford. He saw the numbers. He saw the signatures. And he finally understood. He had not just been exposed. He had been replaced. "You," he stammered, his voice rising, a note of hysteria in it. "You planned this. With her, you are destroying everything I built my life." The light turned green. I put the phone back in its cradle and drove. "You're wrong, Alfred," I said, my voice perfectly calm. "You destroyed it all. You did it the second you stood up in that boardroom and called me out of touch in front of your bosses." I turned the car onto our long, winding driveway, the glass house gleaming on the hill, a monument to our lies. I just turned on the lights so everyone could see, that night. The house was a mausoleum. He drank. He didn't yell. He just drank. And then, he tried the last weapon he had left, the only one that had ever worked before. He came into the kitchen, where I was standing, and his eyes were full of tears. It was a good performance. "Evie," he said, his voice breaking. "How can you do this? Remember when we were in that tiny apartment before all this?" He tried to take my hand. I pulled it away. "Remember when you were first writing the code for this thing?" He pushed on. "And I sat with you. I bought you that whiteboard. I helped you. I was the one who said, 'You can do this, Evie.' I was the only one. How can you throw that away? Throw us away?" And I looked at him, and for the first time, I saw the price of that support. It had never been free. The cost was that I had to be the brilliant one, but he always had to be the successful one. The cost was that I could run, but he had to be the one to hold the leash. I could have a hobby, but he had to have a career. He hadn't supported me. He had just been investing, waiting for a return he could call his own. I left him and went to my office. I printed out the last document. I walked back into the kitchen, where he was still standing, his performance of the broken husband in full swing. I placed the folder on the white marble island between us. He looked at it. "What is this?" "Our next team strategy," I said. He opened it. Divorce papers. My lawyer had drafted them with the same brutal efficiency as the term sheet. It was a clean break. There was a single, non-negotiable clause loop nest, its code, its data, and any and all assets and entities related to it, including Ashford Loop Labs, were my sole and separate property, free of any and all claims from him. There was no fight. There was no screaming, no smashing plates, no drama. Just the quiet sound of paper on stone in a house that was already too cold. He stared at it for a long time, the paper shaking in his hand. He looked up. His eyes, for the first time, just empty. The performer was gone. The VP was gone. He picked up the pen I had placed next to the folder. He held it, hesitating. "If I sign this," he whispered, his voice a dry husk. "Is this the end?" I looked at the man I had once loved, the man who had tried to burn me to keep himself warm. "No, Alfred," I said. "This is just the end of you getting to use me as a shield." A few days later, that's all it took. A few days for the world to realign. I am standing backstage at the Austin New Media Summit. It's the biggest tech event in Texas, and I'm the keynote speaker, my new badge, the one they printed this morning. Doesn't say Evelyn Cooper. It doesn't say guest. It says Evelyn Ashford, CEO, Ashford Loop Labs. I can hear the murmur of the crowd on the other side of the curtain. There are over 2,000 people in that auditorium, and a live stream going out to the entire venture capital world, my world. "You ready?" a stagehand asks. I nod, and I take a deep, steadying breath. I am not the woman who sat at the edge of that obsidian table. I am not the woman who cried in her hobby room. I am a founder. I walk out onto the stage. The lights are blinding, a pure, hot white. I walk to the center, and the applause is a dull roar. I look at the front row. Mara Langford is there, her arms crossed, her face impassive as ever. Next to her is Marcus Thorne, the Boston LP who wrote the check. He gives me a short, respectful nod, and 2 seats down from him is Gareth. His face is tight. He's not here to support me. He's here on orders from Heliozen, to watch, to assess, to see exactly what they had let Alfred throw away. The live stream. I know who's watching that. In a dark, expensive living room in Westridge Hills, in a glass house that is no longer his. I know Alfred is watching. He's not an executive. He's not a VP. He's just an outcast, sitting in a room full of furniture that isn't his, watching his wife take the stage he always dreamed of. I tap the microphone. "Good morning." My voice is clear, and it doesn't shake. "I want to start with a little story," I begin, my voice conversational, as if I'm talking to a friend. It's about a very successful, very wealthy man. This man was a visionary, at least, that's what he told everyone. And this visionary had a wife, and this wife had a little app, a silly hobby. She was a bit out of touch with the real world. I let the words hang in the air. In the front row, I see Gareth flinch. He was there. He remembers. Her husband, the visionary, I continue. He told his bosses that his wife's hobby was a failure. He called it sweet. He called it not serious. He said it had no data, no numbers, no value. I walked to the center of the stage, the small remote in my hand. "But here's the funny thing about data," I say, and I can feel the smile on my lips. It's a real one. It doesn't care what a rich man calls it. It just is. I press the button. The entire 40-foot screen behind me, which had just shown my name, goes black for a second, and then it flashes, my dashboard, my live, administrative console. A gasp goes up from the crowd. It is a beautiful, terrifying thing to see. The map of the United States, glowing with 1,000,000 points of light, every single user currently active on LoopNest, the graphs, showing our daily active user count at over 1.3 million. The revenue counter, ticking up in real time, second by second. I hear a camera shutter click from the press pit. "These," I say, pointing to the massive, undeniable numbers behind me, "are the not serious numbers. This is the hobby. This is the out-of-touch app that, as of this morning, has a 30-day retention rate of 63%. The numbers on the screen are climbing. I can see the user count, it's ticking up, faster and faster. People in the audience, they're downloading the app right now. I click to the next slide. It's not a graph, it's a screenshot of a message from the app. I want to show you what out of touch really means, I say. I read the message. This is from a user named Sarah B. She's a 72-year-old widow in Illinois. She used LoopNest to find a college student who now helps her with her groceries every week, in exchange for her teaching him how to bake bread. They are not out of touch. They are connected. I click again. A photo. A group of 5 young people, all in a new city. This is a Loop, a group formed by 5 people who all moved to Portland for new jobs last month. They had no friends, no community. They used LoopNest last weekend. They went on a hike together. This is not a failed metric. This is the one metric that matters. I take a breath. I am not pitching. I am testifying. For a long time, I say. I was told my work didn't have value because it wasn't understood by the men in the boardroom. I was told my insights were emotional and not strategic. But the truth is, they weren't interpreting my data. They were just stealing it. A dead silence. But the data, in the end, speaks for itself. And so do the people who know its worth. On cue, Marcus Thorne stands up from the front row and walks up the stairs to join me on stage. I hand him the microphone. He looks out at the crowd. He is not a showman. He is just money. He is the voice of capital. My fund, Marcus says, his Boston accent cutting through the room, sees thousands of pitches a year. We see a lot of visionaries. It is rare, exceptionally rare, that we see a founder. It is rare we see a product that is so undeniably, fundamentally real. He gestures to me. We are not investing in LoopNest through a fund. We are not going through any intermediaries. My fund is leading the $150 million Series A for Ashford Loop Labs, and we are doing it because we believe the value should go directly to the person who created it. The applause is deafening. It's a standing ovation. A reporter in the front row shouts, "Mr. Thorne, what does this say about Helios and Capital, who had this asset in their own house and called it a failure?" The cameras all swing. They find Mara in the front row. She does not stand. She just takes the microphone passed to her. She looks at the reporter. "We made a mistake," Mara says, her voice a gravelly cold final word. "We trusted a man who said he had vision, when all he had was a script. We don't make that mistake twice. Today, this is how we fix it." In that glass house, I know what Alfred is seeing. He's watching the live stream. He is watching the graphs that he used to copy-paste into his own slides. The graphs he called his proprietary model, now being used as the centerpiece of my keynote. He is watching his own lie, inverted, weaponized, and broadcast to the entire world. He is watching his own execution. I walk off the stage. The lights are hot. The applause is still echoing. I am in the wings, in the dark, and my hands are shaking, not from fear, but from release. My phone buzzes in my pocket. I pulled it out. A text. It's from my lawyer. It's one sentence. He signed. It's done. He signed the papers, the divorce, the agreement, the house, everything. It's over. I look at the text, and I don't cry. I just smile. It's not a smile of triumph. It's not one of rage. It's just a relief. The weight, the massive, crushing, 3-year weight of that man, of his lies, of his support, it's just gone. The fire exit door next to the stage cracks open, letting in a sliver of the bright, hot Texas sun. It's blinding. My phone screen lights up again. A different notification, a push alert from my own server, one I had set for myself. We just passed a new milestone, a new, massive, daily active user number, a number bigger than any KPI Alfred had ever even dared to lie about. I look at the sunlight. I look at the number, and I slip my phone back into my pocket, a quiet, private laugh escaping my lips. Out of touch, I whisper to myself. Good, because now I'm the one who gets to touch everything you ever thought was yours. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I'd love to know your thoughts. So please comment below and let me know where you're listening from. If you enjoyed this, please subscribe to Zoe Revenge Stories, like this video, and hit that hype button so more people can hear this story.